Hello, everybody. Welcome to Unbiased America Live. We are on episode number 46. We have not yet been canceled due to Grant's inappropriate behavior. Thank
They
goodness.
love me. Everyone loves
Um, we have our smaller regular panel here today. We got Grant Phillips, who is drinking a Modelo Especial, which is beer for the lowest socioeconomic classes. We also have here with us the Libertarian National Committee chair candidate, Charles Peralo, who is also the co-founder of Being Libertarian. You've probably seen his website or his Facebook page. I myself, obviously, Will Riccadella from Unbiased America, and Grant's from We Are Capitalists, so follow We Are Capitalists. It's a great page. They steal all my stuff and post it, and that's how they get most of their followers. But anyway, I was going to say, there's a lot going on this week. We have the dropout of Ted Cruz and Kasich, and we have the presumptive nominee, Donald Trump. And it seems that there's a lot of conservatives, certainly, a lot of a lot of Republicans, and a lot of libertarians who don't really have a candidate, and they're running to the Libertarian Party. And that's where that's where Charles comes in, really. And my first question is, why the Libertarian Party, Charles?
Well, first off, I would say that with running for chairman, and by the way, thanks for having me on, guys. And for running for chairman, I'm just going to say this. I'm running really for 2016 to 2018. So I'm running to build this into a big party, and we can ideally do good in our Senate races, our gubernatorial races, our congressional races, mayor, state assembly, whatever it matters. So I'm looking to build a party here. But why the Libertarian Party? I would say the first big reason is Donald Trump. The second big reason is Hillary Clinton. At the end of the day, these are two people. One of them is this reality star advocating these terrible views, these terrible trade views, these terrible social views, has no clear idea what he's doing on foreign policy or any domestic policies. He has no experience at all. And he's doing this, and he's getting attention because people react to stupid things. They react to 90s reality TV. And Hillary Clinton, it's just the female Richard Nixon without the
Right.
intelligence or class.
Let me stop you there for a second, Charles. So I posed this question today on some of my social sites. I get that both of the Democrat Party's been awful, the Republican Party's been terrible, both candidates are terrible. But does the Libertarian Party want to just be the party of, well, those other candidates are terrible, here we are? Or is it a party
No,
that really wants to stand on some, principles, and what particularly are those principles that sets them apart?
no, because that would just make us Ross Perot and the Reform Party,
Right.
only not as like, oh, I'm Jiminy Cricket's NAFTA, NAFTA, would make us like that. But I mean, when it came to the Libertarian Party, I think our views are very simple. It's libertarianism. It's economic freedom, laissez-faire capitalism, the economics of Murray Rothbard, Frederick Hayek, Milton Friedman. There's different variations. There's the Chicago school, there's the Austrian school, but guess what? We're part of it. On social policy, we advocate really what I think Bernie Sanders has been advocating for, with the exception of differences on gun and tobacco policy. But hey, we are pro-drug legalization. We are pro-LGBT rights, and we've been so for 40 years. We are pro-abortion rights. And on foreign policy, I would just sum it up like this. We are not George W. Bush. We do not have these ridiculous ideas that we can just go to war with whatever country we want. We advocate very clearly it is Congress that decides war, and we should only go to war when there is an imminent threat. So I would say on all these issues, the libertarian message and the Libertarian Party wins.
Hmm. And now, my next question is to inclusiveness, because look, you have a lot of people that are conservatives like myself that I don't subscribe to libertarian philosophy. To me, as I study philosophy, there's only one brand of philosophy that's called philosophy, and I don't. When you put a label on it as liberal philosophy, feminist philosophy, you're really just all you're trying to do is espouse a viewpoint, and it may or may be unhinged from the truth, which is this, to me, this the philosophy. Studying philosophy is trying to find the truth, irrespective of what your ideology is. Um, so to me, I think that some of the libertarian positions, and to conservatives like me, feel that some of the libertarian positions are just fundamentally wrong or contradictory. What is the libertarian willing to accept people that disagree with the foreign policy positions or their social positions? Kind of like the GOP. The GOP does accept
Welcome
a lot
liber-
of people and
No,
does
I,
have a
I will
bigger
say this:
tent.
the GOP has welcomed libertarians in the past. I was a
Hmm.
Republican until recently, until Trump came over. So first off, I would just like to talk on this election. I don't think I have to say this to you if you are a conservative, but Donald Trump is not a conservative. His trade views are not conservative. His healthcare policies are not conservative. His record is just a series of flip-flops
What do you
where
mean,
if you
Charles? He mentions the individual liberty on the Constitution all the time on the campaign trail, right? I mean,
You
that's
know
all
what,
he's talking.
Donald? Rant, 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 rant. You're fired. That's how it is to him.
Yeah,
If you go back to his record, there's a clear history of, uh, oh, I'm pro-choice, I'm pro-life. He has a pancake house. He's doing the flip-flops.
he'll say
But
anything.
regard,
Right.
but regarding actual like going further into why conservatives should join the Libertarian Party, I would really say I would want people to assess which issues matter the most to them and which issues they think can get the most done on. So, for example, a lot of conservatives do not agree with the Libertarian Party stance on abortion. Now, I look at abortion, I say there is no chance that we are ever going to get Roe v. Wade repealed. It's just not going to happen. If you look at the Senate, you look at the House, it's not happening. But what I see, and I see like a real way for us to work together, it's how do we stop abortion without banning it? And I look at the FDA. The FDA is an issue the Libertarian Party has talked about for a long time. They are blocking drugs. They are making it harder to get over-the-counter birth control. They're regulating it so it's harder to introduce new drugs for this. So I'm saying if we were to deregulate the FDA, that's a clear way we can stop abortion because we can have unwanted pregnancies never
When you
happen.
say deregulate the FDA, what do you mean? I mean,
I would say deregulate the FDA. So, for example, there are a lot of drugs that have been proven to be good. I would say that you can put these drugs on the market as long as the risk is associated with it. So, if you look at the current status of the FDA in this country compared to others, we are way more regulated than Europe. The United States is the only country where it takes a minimum of 10 years. And also, if you were to go back to the standards of, let's say, 1992, we can get all the testing that was good enough for 1992 done within a 5 through 6 year period due to new technologies and new methods that we know. But we've refused to do that because I believe big pharmaceutical companies, they spend money with politicians and they box the smaller competitors out, and it makes the process of getting a drug on the market a billion-dollar process, and it's
I
insane.
I hate to say it, but I feel like overturning Roe v. Wade and rolling back the regulations of the FDA, I'd put them at the same actual probability of happening anytime in the future as being just not possible. I mean, rolling back a bureaucracy is
I would
just
say
as hard as overturning stare decisis and past precedent in Supreme Court law,
it,
pretty much.
it might see this, but if we were to have a Roe v. Wade debate, there will be protests on the streets. It'll be
No, I'm
national
not.
news.
I'm
If
not saying that it's
yeah,
possible. I'm just saying
no,
that the.
it's not easy. But if we were to have an FDA debate, nobody would care. It's really just which politicians you elect. Now,
Right.
in the recent decade, Orrin Hatch, a senator of Utah, a guy who I don't know if I always agree with. He seems like a nice guy, but he actually made a major breakthrough in deregulating the supplement market. Supplements used to actually almost have the same regulations as FDA policy. They made a new set of regulations to make it so more supplements could get on the market, and that boomed the market to now being, I believe, a $10 billion a year industry in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
So I think these reforms can get done. I'm not going to say they're easy. I know they're hard, but hey, they can happen.
So I should thank Orrin Hatch for my huge guns.
I actually am an inventor. I have products in the exercise equipment market.
Really?
One of them is right over there. You can Google it, Charles Peralo patents. So I lift about 800 times a day a 50-pound weight. I hope I'm on par there with you.
Really? I do about 675,000 push-ups a day, and I'm 220 pounds, so it's no big deal either.
Well, how tall?
And I
How
don't want to
tall? How
start
tall?
bragging. Oh,
How
I'm
tall?
6'5". It's
Okay, okay. I'm
I drink a lot of
5'11".
beer.
I'm okay. We have the Grant guy over there with the beer. I'm sitting here with the
Grant's got the.
milk.
You got your milk before? Yeah, it's getting close to bedtime there. I hope it's a bit warm. Your milk.
Yeah, well, no, it's not warm milk. I have a debate after this. I need to be on time. I need to be on touch.
And now next, and I want to get Grant in here. And we were talking about this before the show, and we were worried about the inclusivity of the party. But we were also worried about this NAP thing, and everyone keeps talking about the non-aggression principle, right? And that you have to sign a pledge, a non-aggression principle pledge that you ascribe to this philosophical thought, this moral code, before you can become a Libertarian Party member. Is there any truth to that?
Well, first off, I'd want to thank Austin Peterson for bringing it up because I think it was an important thing for his campaign to do. And nobody really talked about it beforehand. I have taken the NAP pledge, but I can see why other people have concerns. Now, right now, a lot of people say that the non-aggression principle is kind of the anarcho-capitalist pledge. I disagree with that entirely. I am not an anarcho-capitalist. I'm more of a classical liberal minarchist type guy. but I can see how the non-aggression principle could mean to say all taxation is theft and you can't have a government. I don't agree with that entirely. Now, it could also say that, but I don't agree. I think what we need to do with the non-aggression principle, and what I would like to do if I was chairman, is make it a little less vague, and, well, actually in some ways make it a little bit more vague. Very clearly say that this is the pledge that you honor private property and you respect the individual and respect their rights to property, but you can install a government that might be able to violate some of those rights in exchange for preserving that property. So it's a vague principle. I would really call it the good government principle or the no government principle to some extent, but I would say it's about creating a better and more stable government overall.
So is the pledge necessary to join the LP? Like, I have to, if I want to join the LP, I have to sign that pledge.
Well, currently Austin Peterson is a member of the LP. He has not taken the pledge, and he currently polls about 25-30% for the presidential primary. So no, I do not think you currently have to take the pledge.
Okay, so I can register as a libertarian tomorrow without signing a NAP pledge.
Yes, you could take the pledge. I mean, right now it's a kind of frowned upon. I think that until questions are answered on the NAP and what it really means, I think that that it is wrong to ask people to take that pledge at this point.
If you're the chair, are you going to would you repeal that idea, or would you rescind on that idea of having people sign the NAP pledge?
I don't think I would repeal on the idea of having people sign the NAP pledge. I would make the pledge more clear. That, or I would make the pledge change the pledge from a non-aggression principle pledge to more of a pledge of respect of other people's privacy and other people's well-being and what their property is about. So I think it's overall a pledge of respect and the idea that you have no intention to violate someone's property unless it is in the name of protection of other people's property, which you could make and argue a case that some things that might be a little bit more big government to libertarians could happen.
See, like, now I'm going to get Grant in here, but my problem with the NAP is I have a moral code, and it comes from my religious beliefs. It comes from a God, and the part of that is our private property rights. That, I mean, I'm talking from the Lockean context, those metaphysical claims, life, liberty, and property, where he derived from our Creator, and what conservatives would consider God-given rights, and that this moral code conflicts with NAP to a degree. That my moral code says that that suicide's immoral. And if I were to stop my, say, family member from committing suicide, I would be violating NAP. And that if I look at that from my standpoint, I wouldn't want to sign that in a million years. And there's a lot of people on the right that are religious, but also understand and believe in these metaphysical rights to life, liberty, and property that could be alienated by that. That the party isn't really pitching that big tent. That it's kind of like, well, we engage. This is our moral code, and if you're not down with it, you can't be part of our group. Does that make sense?
I would say you actually made a great example with the suicide portion. And what I would say regarding suicide is that if somebody were to try and commit suicide, I do not think they are mentally well. So I think that they are in a state where, like, for example, if somebody is diagnosed as mentally ill, can we allow them to do certain things which might be dangerous for their own well-being?
Right.
I don't really think so. I don't think we could allow someone who's a paranoid schizophrenic to just walk around the streets. And I think if there are family and there are friends, we have some responsibility to take care of them, as long as there's a way we can measure and make sure there's no abuse of the system happening, and they're truly mentally ill. So regarding suicide, I would say that anyone who wants to kill themselves, unless it is some sort of painful disease or something of that kind, I don't think that they are well. I don't think if I were to say I want to kill myself or you should, we're both well-functioning people. I don't think any problem would happen with that. So I do think there is a right for people to prevent that kind of situation. Now, going and how that interacts with the NAP overall, because it's more than just suicide, I would say that I don't think it violates any religious views. And like I said, this is a thing that could have many different interpretations to it. And the way it was structured from David Nolan, who sadly has passed away in the last few years, I mean, he was somebody who encouraged people of religion to get involved in the party, and he wrote the NAP. So I think that it's been turned around and made a little weird. And the thing about the non-aggression principle is, up until this election, it was something never really mentioned, but I'm glad it has been, because maybe it was turning some people off from the party. Maybe people saw that and they didn't want to join because of reasons you're espousing now. So I think that that's an important part. I don't want to completely get rid of the non-aggression principle, but I just want to make it so that people can have their different interpretations on it, and it doesn't violate those types of views.
And I know Grant wants to get in here with some questions too.
Yeah. All right. So once Ted Cruz dropped out, I admittedly was one of the people who have always been shy of the LP, but thought about, I can't bring myself to vote for Trump or Hillary. They just don't
Cheers to that.
They just don't deserve my support. And I look at the LP, and my biggest criticisms of them are the non-aggression principle, the whole taking a pledge thing, whether you'd have to do it or not, regardless. My issue was more of they seem to be very exclusive of people who shun them. And I say this in regards to a lot of ways to Austin Peterson, even if you don't like the guy. He did catch a lot of flack for rejecting the non-aggression principle, and even with like party insiders didn't like that. And they've always been like that. It hasn't just been with Austin, it's been a lot of different cases. Well, and to me, if I'm trying to grow the Libertarian Party, I'm taking the non-aggression principle and I'm turning it into a more of like what Will said, a metaphysical doctrine of rights in a way that fits the Constitution and sells to a conservative-leaning sort of like liberty conservatives that are like hardcore like Ron Paul, Rand Paul, but not quite getting into like the libertarian sector of things. So I'm wondering if when you were saying when you become if you were to win party chair, you would make adjustments to the non-aggression principle. I'm wondering if you were willing to almost adapt it to the modern political spectrum insofar as it concerns bringing in conservatives and bringing in the real Reagan conservatives into the party.
Oh, absolutely. Now, but I just want to espouse this idea that some libertarians are not that friendly. Now, just a little background on myself. I was actually a registered Republican until this year, mainly because I wanted to vote for Rand Paul. Because, Rand he was doing. By the way, am I still on? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, you are. You were just breaking up a bit, but I'm not sure if you were breaking up for the audience or just us.
Oh, okay. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so I was a fan of Rand Paul. I was router issues. I was a fan of Rand Paul. I donated to his campaign. I wanted him to win. Sadly, the campaign was not really run that well for one reason or another. The story for that's a podcast for another day.
That's a whole hour podcast. We can talk about that.
That's a whole 12-hour podcast. But when it came to just how I saw it, the reason I really wasn't a member of the LP was because I didn't think it was well run enough for a lot of reasons you're saying. One of which was that if you go to these conventions in the LP, it's kind of a purity contest to some extent. It's like, oh, so you believe the government should spend this or do that, and it's like, you know what, you guys have not gone anywhere right now. Like, we have been at 1% or less for 40 years. So, of course, I want to change around the non-aggression principle to appeal to more people, but at the same time, I want to talk about a lot of other things. Our technology is weak. Our social media is weak. We should have an affiliate status so people who are not registered in our party can become Libertarian Party affiliates and join in with us. We should form a not 501c3 with the other third parties to try and interact and get more voter reform to make it more beneficial for third parties. There's a lot of things we need to do, and I agree that we should not be playing purity games. We should not be hostile to Austin Peterson. Austin's done a lot to help us out. I can't agree with every method he's done in the campaign. I think he's been a little negative to some people, but that's just my own comments. But I don't want this bias, and I don't want a basic purity fest over everything. We're not. I believe you're Italian, and I don't know about you, Grant, but we're not trying to do like the Catholic wedding sheets where you hang the blood-soaked wedding sheets after when you get back from your honeymoon on your windowsill. I don't know why we're doing that. I don't think we should, and I think we should try and get some Democrats, some Republicans, and a lot of independents on our side.
And I'm actually I'm a racist redneck from the South. I don't know if you ever heard. But,
we got some. Yeah. Is that evangelical?
Yeah, I'm Northeast Florida, so yeah, I hate every minority there is apparently.
Wow. Yeah. Oh. We all do.
Yeah.
Please don't tell me you've ever voted for Charlie Crist.
No. Oh God, no. Ooh.
Actually, speaking of minority, I gotta just ask. This is a segue.
Marco Rubio was our guy though. He campaigned around me for a while.
No, Marco was good in 2010. Things changed, but
as a senator, he was pretty good.
But actually, I just want to make one little point. Charlie Crist, what is he exactly? Is he Hispanic, or because he has that like kind of
I think he's like a ghost demon. I don't know if that's a race. That's
He's
what he
the,
looks
well,
like.
no. He's like half ghost, half human because
Yeah.
He's
like he
reptilian.
goes from Republican to Democrat to Independent. He's everything.
Here's my next question for you. Gary Johnson is running again, and predictably, he has sort of taken the forefront, especially with Cruz dropping out, as what I've seen the buzz going around. But his prior career at LP, running for the presidential nomination, he has not exactly garnered a lot of the national vote, as you mentioned earlier. And maybe that is because of the ideological pissing contest that goes on within the LP. I'm not sure. But the fact is that he has not marketed a presidential campaign to the masses. It's always been about the same. So where is the faith in him now to perform better than he has in the past? And is he the future of the LP? Why not? Your thoughts on that?
Well, first off, as running for chairman, I'm looking to build a party here, so I can't be biased and say I'm supporting Gary. It's just not right to do. Regarding Gary Johnson, if I can say some good things here about the guy, because I've known him for 6 years. I was probably his first volunteer in 2011 when he started his Republican campaign. I have an enormous amount of respect for him. And doing this campaign, he has made almost every big media so far you could get in terms of national respect. And I think it's going to get a lot bigger in the next 30 days and so on, assuming, and much further if he wins the nomination. Now, just going past that, though, I think that at this point, any libertarian could do better than any libertarian has ever in history with this field. The fact is, it is Trump versus Clinton. It is something that I don't think any Republican, besides the Trump fans, were looking forward to. I feel like anyone who voted against Trump was very unhappy there. So that's sort of my general view on this. And I think we can grow this overall. But for Gary, I mean, I can't say I'm supporting him because of the chairman spot. But if he is the nominee, I'll be rallying right behind him. I've known him for years, and he'll do a great job. So will Austin. So will John. So will Daryl. So will Mark. And I'm trying to get everything in. And if Vermin Supreme gets the nomination, he'll do fine too.
So my kind of thoughts on the last two questions we discussed is that the LP has been very like almost cultishly inclusive about people and how they feel about the non-aggression principle. It's been to the point where
I've seen it.
Yeah, right.
I've seen it hard.
It's a real turnoff, I'll tell you that.
We're talking like age of consent law, like that dogmatic, and to me, that shuns a lot of people away, including myself. And I identify as libertarian. I disagree with ideological libertarians on monetary policy and foreign policy, probably, but that's not enough for me to drive away from being actually libertarian.
And also, by the way, monetary.
And I think the Libertarian Party has been pursuing a strategy that is essentially being a dead horse. They've tried the same thing year after year. It doesn't improve their standing. They always stick the same. And I think a lot of that is because we suffer from the complex of like voting is enabling the state. That kind of like mentality. Being rigidly individualistic to like there's too much of a point in that regard.
I moderated the Philadelphia Libertarian Party debate. I had a couple of my friends come with me because I was going to be in there for a few days, didn't want to be alone. And one of them was like talking to somebody who's like a state chair. Well, not a state chair. He's like some sort of state rep for the Libertarian Party. And it's like, oh, you vote? How cute. I'm like, you're at a convention for people to go vote and nominate people. What the hell are you doing? And look, I'm not one of those people. I'm not an ideologue. You know what? I can compromise if it's a respect. Now, like for example, with Ted Cruz. I think Ted Cruz, if he was elected president, he might have been the best president on economics in the last 100 years. Now, on foreign policy, I strongly disagree with him. We need to have a serious debate there. On social policy, I very strongly disagree with him. We need to have a real debate there. But you know what? We can get along on a lot of things. But the fact that I saw a lot of libertarians just outright bashing Cruz and also bashing Gary Johnson and Austin Peterson for trying to solicit Cruz supporters, I don't know what's going on. It confuses me. I mean, Gary's getting backlash for trying to get Bernie Sanders supporters. I'm like, which supporters are we going to try and get? Because right now we're at 1%, guys. We are at 1%. We need to get the other 99%. I know I sound like Bernie right now, mentioning 1%, 99%. It's a little weird. I can't do the Brooklyn accent. I'll try. Like, the 99%, we cannot do this without the 99%. But you get what I'm saying here. You get overall what I'm saying here. Like, we need to go to other people. And I speak to people in the party, people who've been in this party for 20 years. They're telling me, oh, we need to get people who don't vote right now. Like, the people who don't vote are never going to vote. There is very little evidence that we will ever increase turnout. Like, it's stupid. That's a stupid strategy.
I completely agree with you about libertarians. I've seen it. They criticize. I saw Austin said, if you're a Cruz supporter...
Our views are the best, though. Our ideology is the best.
I agree, and I think
I'll be the lone dissenter there. Actually,
yeah.
If you identify as a constitutional conservative, that's close enough. I could work with you.
I thought Ted Cruz had a great foreign policy, in my opinion.
I do too, but I'm a classical liberal in the Lockean sense. I think libertarians.
Ted Cruz's foreign policy kind of confused me there, because he started off really where people were telling me in 2012 he was a non-aggressionist. And it kind of evolved into like, oh, I'm going to make the sand glow. And the thing about Ted Cruz, I still look at the ultimate, what his foreign policy was. I don't know if it was even that militarist. I don't know if it was that aggressive. He just made it seem like that to give red meat to his base. And I think that was the wrong strategy for him to do. I think he should have some regrets on doing that.
I think you got his foreign policy right, but I think you're wrong on the rhetoric. I think he's correct on the rhetoric, but that's another debate.
That's another 12-hour debate.
Yeah, if you don't think strong rhetoric doesn't work, I have two words: Donald Trump. And I think a lot of Ted Cruz's problems was he wasn't strong enough. His declarations were, it was almost like he was delivering the Gettysburg Address every single time and not tapping into anger. So that was part of his campaign's problem, was Cruz himself. But that we could do a whole other show. But
well,
yeah,
I'm going to say what the reason why Ted Cruz lost. The reality is, it's that nasally voice he has. I'm sorry, like, the guy kind of just looks a little weird. Because the people I always go
Donald Trump doesn't look weird? I mean, geez.
Oh, he looks weird. He looks weird, but his wife covers that for him.
He looks orange with like whiskers hanging off at the top of his head.
He's a tall Oompa Loompa, I'm aware. But
yeah.
But no, I mean, like, the people I always go to, like, it sounds weird, but I actually normally go to my parents, which sounds very awkward to say, because they don't they don't really follow politics at all, but they do vote. So I kind of look at, like, what is the voter who doesn't really care about this thinking? And when I go to ask them, I'm like, what do you think of Ted Cruz? It's like, oh, he's so awkward looking, he looks strange. And they didn't like Donald Trump, but they were like, I wouldn't vote for Cruz because he just looks like a weirdo. I'm like, and I was like,
it's what you get. A lot of people vote on looks, and what's funny
it's
is
sad. It's sad.
I've got feedback from people before.
The one thing I actually disagree with Cruz the most on is perhaps one of his most libertarian positions is the gold standard. I hated whenever he mentioned that gold standard, man. That's just a trade-off of one problem for many others. But
I would say that I'm for competitive currencies and allowing the market to make currency, but I do like Milton Friedman's basic approach over the gold standard. I think the gold standard has a million issues attached to it. Yeah. What I would like to see happen is, and I'm sure you guys have discussed it, and I know you guys are friends with Matt Palumbo, who I'm good friends with, and I talk about this all the time. If we were to have a free market currency option, we'd probably start off with the dollar, and then people over time move over to, like, oh, this is going to be based on gold. And I think over time it'll gradually scale up with gold prices. And we could get a gold standard. It quite possibly could, quite possibly not. We could get an aggregate currency. I don't know.
Hayek and Friedman had a good debate about it, and at the time, of course, Hayek, who always described the law as something that was organic, that evolved through time, and that's true with common law, coming from specifically England to the United States, which the common law in the United States is an extension of English common law. And you had with languages that had no central planning, they were organic as well and developed organically, that money would develop organically as well. But Friedman's problem was network costs or switching costs, network costs being that the value of the money only matters along with or corresponding to the amount of people that use it. So that's only more valuable with the more people that use it. And Friedman was saying that these transaction costs and the switching costs, that I have to switch from one currency to another, would make the costs of that would outweigh the benefits, and that if you had one stable currency, you would have better trade. But that was a long time ago.
I spent a lot of time in Bitcoin. I could say that would still probably exist if you look at the currency transfer costs there, because it is just a supply and demand game. What currency?
Hmm. But don't I think that
Um,
as far as the network effects, you can have it's not just over a geographic area. People in New York and California can take Bitcoin because it's a cryptocurrency
yeah,
over the computer, and that can compete with other currencies, a gold standard currency. I agree with Hayek that it should happen organically. It should happen through the market
yeah,
processes. And the market will figure it out. And yeah,
but
yeah.
sure, there's costs, but the costs can't be as bad as the deflation and inflation that we get from the Federal Reserve.
Well, like you were saying, I mean, with today's technology, I mean, you could literally just have websites that are just giant clearinghouses that just
Right.
sort of use their own currencies that are preferable to them, but at the
Yep.
same time, because they can process data so quickly, and I'm sure will be a very valuable service to a lot of people, they would have no problem changing currencies back and forth to each other.
Right. And I
Just,
think
I
that
just say from
if someone wants to give out a loan, and I was actually having this conversation the other day with someone who was very left-leaning Keynesian and saying, well, what if like I want to give a loan to you, but you use a different bank? Or how would the velocity of money would come to
I
a
think
dead
the market would just sort of. I think
loan
the market.
currency. But this is if you have giant clearinghouses on these like sort of internet networks, it would basically just be saying I'm going to issue X amount of whatever currency to your account. The banks do the transaction costs at in a millisecond over a
Yeah.
network, and then they issue those credits to you.
Well,
And then when you build a return, you issue them back to your bank, and then they further
well,
along
one
the
thing.
transaction. The costs nowadays are minimal.
Well, one thing
Go
I
ahead,
could say about
Charles.
being involved in Bitcoin is I think Bitcoin is a great prototype for exactly what we were saying if we were ever to take free market currency to a global scale. So I think it could work, but I think Bitcoin is kind of I think Bitcoin has a great future, but at a minimum, that future is scaling and being the practice for what the system we've just discussed with going online. But actually, it's 8:33. I'm getting some messages. I have a debate to head to right now.
All right,
Any
that's all
final
right.
questions? Any final
Yeah.
questions for me?
What platform would you say you're running on? What is your goal for the Libertarian Party for the next 2 years, if you win?
My goal for the Libertarian Party in the next 2 years, I would say that we get much more in terms of registration. We're raising over $5 million a year. And I would say that through either affiliates to the LP or actual LP members, we've had a point where maybe 5% of the voting block is there. And I would say for 2018, our goal it would be to have maybe one person elected to Congress, one person, more people in state assembly, and then to just generally across the country get 5 to 10%. That's the big goal right there. And then we take that momentum and we turn it into a 2020 where we could have that presidential ticket, which, we'll be going up against either Hillary or Donald Trump in 2020. I don't imagine they'll be much stronger than they are now.
Okay, those are some good goals, and I hope it works out, and I hope you win.
And
Can you tell our viewers or anybody that's listening where they can, when and where the vote is?
charlesperalo.com.
And
The vote is actually going to be in Orlando at the convention. So if you're a delegate or
okay,
you know anyone who's a delegate, please vote for me. But also just check out my website, charlesperalo.com, Peralo. And thank you guys for having me on.
oh, thank you, Charles. We'll have you back sometime. Thanks for coming on.
And I enjoyed talking to you guys, and I want to talk a little bit more on other economic issues. That was fun.
You'll be back. Thanks again.
No.
All right, Grant. So now let's talk about what we were talking about pre-show.
Wait. I want to know if do you agree with me on clearinghouses with
No,
low action cost of technology and issuing debt? That I had that conversation today. Someone asked me, how could you issue a loan if people have two different currencies with two different clearinghouses? And my response was, the clearinghouses will figure out a way to work it out if it's a profitable.
Well, yeah, it'll just be like I think it would just be kind of like there are costs to it, but it would be kind of like how foreign countries do it.
Right.
Yeah,
but
they
with
would just
the internet.
they would use that currency and buy goods with it. They would take the currency or whatever, and
software programs, they can figure that out in a millisecond. There's no cost to it at all.
they
There's
just
a
figure out the
cost,
real value.
but that's it. That's nothing.
Yeah, they figure out the real value. It would be interesting how the one problem is collecting taxes. How would the state collect taxes? There are problems. It isn't without.
I think there should still be a central bank, and they could just pay taxes based on that value.
Yeah, something. It would get worked out, and I think it would be. I just think it would be less of a problem with a centrally planned, controlled currency where they control the price for investing. They literally control the price of investments, and that's kind of scary. And that's why we have these such bad business cycles, you know. But I wanted to get into, here's my problem right now, and if I'm not going to vote for anybody, if it's Austin, I will most definitely vote for him, and I'll tell you why. And my biggest concern is the Supreme Court. We talked about this before the show. Is that if Donald Trump wins, there's a much better chance of getting an originalist on the court. People say, oh, well, he's not a conservative, and you're right. But he's going to have conservatives around him. His advisors are going to be Republicans, right-leaning people. He may put on people that he ran. Perhaps it's Ted Cruz that he puts on the court, okay? That is a huge victory for the next 30 years. With Ted Cruz, it would probably be the next 40 years. But if you're voting for a libertarian and you're in these swing states, you're kind of guaranteeing a Hillary Clinton, and you're guaranteeing a leftist on the court. I'm talking a leftist of the Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Elena Kagan, another leftist, and it's just going to shred the Constitution for years to come. And the only reason I would vote for the Libertarian, I'm in California. It's not a swing state. I'm going to make a statement here. I'm not going to vote for Trump. I'd vote for the Libertarian to give them an extra little boost. But do you share my concerns about the Supreme Court?
Now, yes, I do share your concerns, and I like the way you put it as depending on what state you're in. Mm-hmm. So, like you said, you're not a swing state. Like Hillary's going to win no matter who you vote for. Me in Pennsylvania, I could be a swing state.
Right.
I will vote for the LP if they earn my vote. You know, regardless who it is. If it's Gary Johnson, he probably won't, because I've never really been a big Gary Johnson fan. Austin Peterson, maybe. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I think it's going to come down to what develops throughout the general election. I mean, Trump could change his platform. He's done it a million times, you know.
Here's another point though. Is I like Austin. Austin's a classical liberal. He's a constitutionalist.
Right. I like Austin too.
And libertarians had a problem with Ted Cruz's stances on marriage. He's like, I'm a Christian. I think marriage is between a man and a woman. Austin's probably thinking, well, you know, they can get married, but but their positions are literally the same, because I don't think Austin would say, you know, he would get rid of the federalism answer, where Ted Cruz would say, yeah, it's up to the states to decide. Ted Cruz has never said, I'm going to encroach on state, I'm going to encroach into state governments and the autonomous states and say what you have to do with marriage. And I don't think Austin would do the same. I think the only way they separate is their personal beliefs.
Right.
So I just think that Austin is a conservative. I mean, that's his problem with the Libertarian Party, is that sometimes his rhetoric is somewhat libertarian, like you can't legislate morality, which is a mere mantra. It has literally no meaning, because that means that any law that restricts behavior is a moral law, and you're saying that you can't do that. I mean, it's literally the most vacuous thing you could say.
Personal morality, insofar as it concerns your own behaviors and how it affects you.
Right. I mean, and I don't know, sure.
Homicide.
But I mean, it's like, well, then who decides? You know what I mean? Well, who decides what you can restrict? And it's like, well, we have the self-government answer, you know?
But see, I think Austin also taps into the conservative foreign policy a little bit more, because I've had a debate, well, not debate, just back and forth with Austin one time about foreign policy and how libertarians don't understand it whatsoever. And he seems to me to understand that the costs of war are high, but sometimes war is necessary.
Yep. And
that you also must have the U.S. has to have a role in global security as far as protecting trade. Those are if you could put it in 5 seconds, that's my foreign policy stance.
Yeah, absolutely. And protecting America's best interests.
Right.
I would say,
and overthrowing Saddam Hussein or Bashar al-Assad is not in the U.S. best interest. Like what?
Right.
We gain nothing from that.
This on the Iraq war point. There's two.
I think Austin Peterson. One last thing. I think Austin Peterson would declare war on ISIS. And
yeah,
I support that fully.
Here's the thing: is that everyone says the Iraq war, and they don't really mean the war itself. There's two different phases. We had a war with the Iraqi Republican Army. We won that in 3 weeks. Okay, the war was over. It was merely the police operation that we had, the police mission we did afterwards, the nation building. That was the problem. It's saying that, okay, Saddam Hussein's bad. Saddam Hussein's a national security threat. Take out Saddam Hussein. Okay, then what? If you defeat his army and you leave, there's a civil war. Okay, what happens then? You know what I mean? It's not about, it's just getting rid of nation building as a strategy as a whole, or saying that, yeah, we'll go to war, we'll topple this regime, and then, oh, we'll just build a democracy. You know, it just doesn't work that way. It never did before, because obviously, you know, in the Middle East, certainly in Iraq, in Egypt, that they've never, ever had democratic principles. They've never had real liberty. You can't just build a civil society where one has not existed. So it's kind of just getting a grip altogether on what the civil society is, why markets won't flourish there. You know what I mean? And the problem literally is too much diversity, if you really want to get down to it. The Middle East, India, these are the most diverse places on earth, and all you have is war. Look at India and Pakistan. All they did was war with each other.
We had Mohammed Shaker on last week, and that's what he was talking about, is how diverse and culturally different it is. But here's my thing. Going back to the Iraq War, pre-Iraq War, I don't think our response to Saddam Hussein was necessarily warranted. I think there were other lower cost options that we could have taken. But we were on sort of a war high horse, and then when we went in that direction,
I don't know if that's the case though, because
we don't know. We didn't do it very effectively. And you're right that if we were going to do that 3-week and win strategy, we should have just left. Why did we stay? What did we have to gain?
Well, because it created a power vacuum. Look, it's a lot more difficult than people make it out to be. There's a power vacuum.
I agree. But the inevitable outcome of that 3-week and leave, or that 3-week invasion, is this power vacuum, which in my opinion is probably worse than Saddam Hussein in the first place.
Could we have done more to win the war? Like, let's say instead of being like an occupying, could we have fought a legitimate war and crushed the elements that we had to? Yeah, but we weren't willing to do that.
We could have, and we weren't willing to do it. You're right. Yep. But regardless, even if we did that, there would still be a power vacuum. I think you'd still have a sort of an offshoot outcome of that war. So when we did the whole Saddam thing, I think we had much better strategies, and I think the U.S. just bold-faced said, "We just whooped ass in Afghanistan. We want to do it."
I agree. I look at it.
And think, what else can we do? What are
I agree, but if you look at it within context, and I was following this really close, and I'm not defending the president. He did wait a long time. It was March 2003 when he invaded. It was the beginning of March, so it was a long time after 9/11. So this wasn't anything he didn't think about. Furthermore, it was that they had weapons of mass destruction and that terrorists would get them. So everyone were really worried about that. So the Congress had the same intelligence, and they voted the authorization of military force. I'm not, obviously in hindsight, it wasn't the right thing to do from a standpoint of you can't build a democracy there. So the costs of war, they had asymmetrical information, really. Is that they didn't understand the costs entirely. They thought the costs were a lot lower, but they were certainly a lot higher. And I don't know how they would have known at that time. This is the first time in history anything had happened like that. So look, I'm not saying it. I'm not defending it. It was a bad idea for those reasons. But in hindsight, anyone can say that. But if you look at it from the time, Democrats were voting for this. Hillary Clinton voted for this, for the authorization of military force. I don't think anybody went into it lightly, if that's what people would presume. I don't think Bush went into it lightly. I think it was a bad. The end product was certainly disastrous, and I don't think they knew that was going to happen. In fact, they knew. I know for a fact they didn't know that was going to happen. I mean, how could you know? So yeah, you have to. You're right.
I think they were quick to jump to that solution because we had just. We had an army ready to roll in Afghanistan. So it was kind of like, we have these other alternatives, or we can just do what we just did. And I think it was an easy pick, considering our initial success in Afghanistan. Because that's what happened.
If you look at Afghanistan,
we just destroyed the place, and we were very successful in our mission there. Insofar as reducing the existence of the Taliban, and then we went in when now we're presented with the situation in Iraq, and we just thought, okay, this won't be that bad.
Let's say a hypothetical.
We thought the costs were lower, though.
Let's say a hypothetical. We don't invade Iraq. Iraq gives weapons of mass destruction they get it to give mustard gas to terrorists. They use the mustard gas in Europe. I mean, then we're all talking about, oh my God, Bush didn't do this. But you know what I mean? Look.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right.
It's always something. This is
Right.
what I mean. Yeah, it's a bad idea. We know that historically. But people ripping into Bush, oh, it's neocon, constantly. Yeah, I get it. I would never advocate nation building just from a matter of historical perspective. But for everyone to sit up on their, especially these internet warriors, to come out, oh, Bush is stupid. You know what I mean? Like, it's a lot more nuanced than that. And I would never presume.
Like, oh, I can make so much money by invading Iraq. Like, what?
Yeah, I know. Like, oh, the oil. We wanted the oil. But yeah, was Bush stupid? What concerned me about Bush wasn't necessarily that. It was just his domestic spending. It was unbelievable. It was astronomical. Medicare Part D, no child left behind. He was a big government, top-down type of guy, and that's just what he did. I mean, yeah, his foreign policy, I don't think would have been different with anyone else in office. I really don't. So, but
in hindsight, if I was George Bush, I think I would have just dropped the entire arsenal of U.S. bombs into like the general like weapons of mass destruction area and just blown everything to pieces.
He did also end the Libya question too. I mean, Libya, as soon as he invaded Iraq, turned over every weapon they had.
He did. They did.
They were all of a sudden became an ally. It's funny though, because the backlash against that war gave us the problems we have now. Literally, because people were just like, oh, it was, oh, now we need to just get out of there. And look, to a degree, they were about Afghanistan. They're correct. I don't know why we have no mission in Afghanistan.
We should have left in 2003.
We should have. I don't know why we're still there. But the thing is that we leave and the Taliban will come right back. And at this point, okay.
Is that our problem? Like,
I mean, if the Taliban, the thing about Afghanistan is the Taliban was training terrorists to kill Americans, so we did have a problem there. But you're right, there are other options. I mean, the droning, look, oh my God, he kills kids. The droning worked. The droning decimated Al Qaeda. Oh, this whole Obama's murdering children. These people are insane. Yes, it's horrible. War sucks. But you know how many kids they're killing in Iraq and Afghanistan? You know how many Muslim kids those terrorists are killing? Far more than those bombs are. So get over it. These kook people on my page, I put something up on Barack Obama being cool because of the science fair. He murders children. You know what I mean? As if he just one day said, I'd like to kill a bunch of kids. Drop a bomb over here. Like what?
No, Harry Truman, he killed a lot of kids.
Yeah, I know.
FDR. Yeah.
I hate Barack Obama. I assure you Barack Obama loses sleep over that. I assure you of that. And that is a tough call to make. And I hate that guy. He's destroyed he is destroying my Constitution. But insofar as it relates to his character, I doubt that he enjoys making those decisions. I'd like to put these people that criticize him for it in his shoes when he has to make that call. Hey, this guy has killed numerous people and he's going to kill more. And he's at a wedding. What do we do?
Can you imagine telling? Can you imagine telling the Navy SEALs to invade the Bin Laden compound in Pakistan, where they know that there are kids in there, and then they know that there's women in there, women and children are in there, like that. That's got to be like I could.
Yeah, I know. Well, I don't like
George.
After the Lockerbie bombing in 1988, when Gaddafi, he claimed responsibility and they killed all those people. I think about 20 some Americans. It was 260 some people died. Reagan bombed Gaddafi's compound and he killed his daughter. Like but Gaddafi escaped. I don't know if you know that.
No, I didn't know that.
Time, and that really, I mean, he really pushed back at Gaddafi a couple of times. And I mean, that's a tough call to take. Like, how many more people am I going to let this guy kill? Also with the military bombing there in Germany where they killed all those U.S. soldiers. Yeah. And he's faced with, his family's there. And Reagan has to say, oh, no, don't kill him. Let him kill more people. And I mean, that was really where Gaddafi started to change over from, oh, wait a minute here. They're going to come after me. I better stop. I'd like to, you know what I mean? And that's kind of what it's funny. Then we advocate the overthrow of Gaddafi when he's our ally, and he's saying to the United States, "Hey, why is there a no-fly zone here? I'm your ally, and now you want to overthrow me? All the things I did before,
Yeah, that was a dumb call. That was a bad call. I think that brings the point of what libertarians and maybe even the Libertarian Party does not understand is that when you're the leader of the free world, essentially as the president of the United States, you're faced with foreign policy, and the decisions get very difficult.
Yep.
You know, it becomes a situation where you have to decide whether some lives are worth less or more than others, and you can't just throw around hashtags like all lives matter. Oh, but brown kids. Oh, but these other kids. At the end of the day, I mean, you're acting on the best behalf of your country. You're representing your country, and you're doing what you can.
Right.
Sometimes innocent lives die. But we weren't like, oh, shit, we might kill innocent civilians in France. We better not go save them from the Nazis.
Yeah, I know.
Kids might die.
You know
that wasn't like, no one thought about that when they were.
They did. They certainly did, but it was costs that they were willing to accept. They certainly did. They knew that they were, they're carpet bombing Dresden and leveling cities at families and kids. But that's, war sucks, man. No one is out there saying it's a good thing. It's like, oh, antiwar.com. That's great. You're anti-war. That doesn't mean that wars aren't going to happen. I'm anti-domestic abuse. That doesn't mean it stops tomorrow. There's things that happen. I don't want anyone to be killed. I'm against killing, but that doesn't mean that killing is always unjustified. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, this is, you can't, oh, I'm anti-war. Really? Point out anybody who's pro-war. I don't know anyone who's the hawkish of hawks. I don't know who are pro-war that are saying we should always go to war or don't. I think some of this positioning is insane.
There are definitely some that I think are more apt to find war as a solution.
Sure, but I wouldn't.
They personally want that to happen.
Right. I think I agree with you. Let's go to winners and losers, and I want you to do yours first. You might have some interesting ones if you can think of them off the top of your head, or I can go first.
I have losers.
Go ahead.
My first loser is John Kasich, bread roll, Kasich. How do you say it? Kalikis?
Yeah, something. Melikaliki Laka.
Kashish. Yeah, he says the bread roll guy. That guy. Bread roll. Yeah, he's the freaking loser. Why? He just dropped out today.
Grant, why do you think?
He just dropped out today.
Why do you think he did it right when Cruz did?
Not even right when, right after.
I mean, look, the establishment wanted Trump.
Could you be more obvious?
The establishment wanted Trump. And this is what these Trump fools can't get, is that they understood that, John Boehner, Cruz is the Lucifer. You know what I mean?
Yeah. They hate him.
It's amazing. They hate him. It's the Constitution they hate. That's the thing. They don't hate the man. They hate his principles.
Kasich dropped out literally like 6 hours after Ted Cruz. Not even like a full state later. Like immediately after. This was just the biggest ruse ever pulled.
Isn't it terrible?
And my God!
Look at Fox News. Look at what Fox News did, though. They thought that Trump was a joke. Oh no, he's a joke. We don't want him. All of a sudden, when they saw like what kind of character he had, and that this guy's easily influenced. He's definitely going to govern as an establishment. They went all out. And I mean, to the point where it's embarrassing.
And from right that day on, his ratings skyrocketed.
It is embarrassing. You know what? Actually, CNN has beat them in ratings since they went full Trump. CNN for the first time in months has beat them in ratings. They lost it. Look, the conservative base has moved away. They couldn't take it anymore. Have you been watching Fox News? Every show is Trump. Eric Bolling, Lou Dobbs, Hannity. They're all Trump bots. They've all got O'Reilly, Susteren. They're all for Trump. The 5 Trump. They love this guy. I think the only guy on there was Gutfeld, and he was even nervous about making comments about Trump. He's the only one that brought up the JFK assassination thing on that show. No one else brought it up, and they laughed about it. It was, oh yeah, the National Enquirer got that thing right about John Edwards. What?
This guy doesn't even know how the primaries work.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
All right. So my winner for the week is the Libertarian Party. For the first time in the history of Unbiased America Live, my winner of the week is the because honestly, I think that there is a case to be made that with the decimation of the GOP through Donald Trump and his establishment friends, that the Libertarian Party, if they capitalize on their moment, they will thrive. Now, my faith in them capitalizing on it is next to zero. Yeah. But they could. The opportunity is there. they can seize it, and I think that they could. I mean, can you imagine if the LP got like 11%, 13% of the national vote?
I think I think they might. I think they might actually exceed that. I think they may get closer to 20%. Call me crazy.
No, I kind of agree with you.
Yeah, I think they'll get high.
I like libertarian, like funny bone is like agreeing with you.
I don't think there's Gary Johnson. No, I don't think as a conservative hearing him, I don't think I could support the guy.
I think Austin Peterson has a better chance of getting a higher.
If it's Austin, he could win conservatives. I think Austin could win conservatives, and I could see actually people in the conservative movement, big name people, talking about Austin Peter. This is his chance, and he can do it. I think he'll be on next week. So he'll be here, and we'll talk to him about that.
I think the Rand Paul fans will draw to him very quickly and in very large numbers.
Right, and that's funny because my winner of the week's Austin. Austin's going to win huge here because he's the only conservative, literally. If you look at it, he's pro-life. He's already got that down. On social issues, he's a federalist. He believes in federalism, so he leaves it to the states. He's a classical liberal in that sense, and so these conservatives are too. So he has a shot, and I just don't think Gary Johnson has said some things, on the free market. He's off base. I don't know what it is. I think he's part of that establishment. You know what I mean? Gary Johnson's that establishment type of guy, and part of the LP establishment, which tells me is a problem in the Libertarian Party too.
Like I said earlier, Charles, I mean, this guy's been running for the LP nomination or the Aussie LP candidate for decades.
Yeah,
pretty much, and
he's got to go.
What has he done? What has he done?
He's not
the only reason he's the highlight now with the Cruz dropping out is because he's been around so long.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah. So my loser is Fox News. And I wanted to do a post on that, but I've been so busy on UA and the ratings, CNN beating Fox News in the ratings for the first time in the longest time because of how much everyone's saying, oh, yeah, Trump's the Fox News is Trump because of the ratings. No, Fox News is Trump because that's who they want to win. And it was really sickening to watch. And my boy Brett Baer was the only holdout on the whole station. And you know what, Charles Krauthammer? That I gave Trump a shot at the start. You know that, right? I didn't. Yeah. I wasn't out there first attacking Trump. I wasn't anti-Trump.
I went right out of the gate at Trump. I went right out of the gate. I didn't like him from the beginning.
Everyone went. There was a lot, and I didn't. And I was waiting to hear. I was waiting to hear his positions, and then he lost me. So it wasn't like I was out to get this guy from the beginning. I defended him on birthright citizenship. I wrote a little piece on that a long time ago. I gave him a shot. He abandoned conservative principles, not the other way around. So I don't know. Anyway. Our next show next week, we'll have Austin Peterson on, so watch next Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern for Grant Phillips of We Are Capitalists. You can who also has pieces on Unbiased America Live, and myself, Will Riccadella for Unbiased America. I'm sorry, unbiasedamerica.com, not Unbiased America Live.
Good job.
For myself, Will Riccadella, check out unbiasedamerica.com. There's tons of Grant's work on there. You can do an author search if you click on the blog tab. And look for other authors. I'm on there. Matt Palumbo's on there. Kevin's on there. And also we're looking for writers. So if you want to write for unbiasedamerica.com, you can talk to Grant because he'll do all that stuff. And
Modern Libertarian.
and the Modern Libertarian. Follow the Modern Libertarian.
Your hate mail about Will.
And the hate mail. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week with Austin Peterson. Thank you.